That's right, we were talking about that bad boy today right there, which is the Glock 43X MOS. It has some nice changes in it. It seems to be that Glock and pretty much every other manufacturer are releasing more and more stuff, which is keeping us more and more depleting our bank accounts. But it's been difficult to get a hold of things because of stock. Now, there are some great things about this. And one of the things that Glock has apparently started to do is they're releasing direct thread optic mounts on their slides. So like this one specifically is direct mount for the RMSC pattern. But I know that some of the full-size stuff, I saw one the other day where it was direct mounted for a Delta Point Pro. I think that was a contract set up with the government, but I like the fact that they're doing direct mounts because it's better than the plates. But again, Delta Point Pro, that was the first one you went with. Now you can see I've got mine paired up with that Swamp Fox Sentinel. We'll do a full video on that, but I'm still testing it out. I've had a chance to get it out on a couple of different pistols now, from the Hellcat to this thing. And we're just gonna see how it does over time with a whole bunch of rounds through it. Now you're gonna have to hear me out on this, but I really do think the 43X MOS is one of the best EDC setups out there. Now I know the comment section is already probably gonna light up with people saying, well, this is better than that and this is better than that, because everybody likes different things. However, notice I said one of the best. I didn't say the best, because I generally don't deal in definitives, because a lot of it comes down to personal choice. But we'll talk about a couple things. There is one caveat to that, but I really do think the 43X MOS, for several reasons, is definitely one of the best things to look into for EDC. And if you are new here, consider subscribing to the channel, turning the bell notification icons on, and definitely being thumbs today in the thumbs up direction. If you're not new here, this is the first video with my brand new Canon R6, my brand new L-Glass lens, new lighting. As you can see, there's a little mood lighting in the background. I want that purple because real men can wear any color and get away with it. At least that's what my wife told me or something. But everything is new, even the audio stuff. I bought all brand new stuff to make your guys' experience here better. So definitely let me know in the comments what you think about how everything looks, how everything sounds, and if there's anything that you would tweak besides the color, because I can tweak all those colors anytime I want. And to share a secret with you, don't tell my wife, I spent more than a Scar Heavy on all this new gear. I spent a lot more than a Scar Heavy costs on this new gear. But at the end of the day, you guys are all absolutely worth it. So let's go ahead and get into this thing, talk about the specs. We'll look at some more of that range footage throughout the video. We'll talk about what I like, what I don't like, what I think this needs, and what I think the aftermarket is gonna have to do to really make all of this new stuff coming out take off. And of course, I'm gonna show you how the trigger works in here, because a lot of people seem to like that, especially my newer owners, which welcome to the club. I like to learn how that trigger system in there actually functions, which is something I like too, because it really helps me make kind of a mental connection between the tool that I'm using and what's actually going on in there. And then of course, leave your feedback down below, but we're gonna get into the 43X MOS right now. All right, let's go ahead and get into the 43X MOS right here. Obviously the MOS, this one is milled directly for the RMSC pattern. I have that Swamp Fox Sentinel on there, like I said. So I'm gonna go ahead and read you these specs right off my cell phone, so I don't get anything wrong, because somebody's gonna yell at me if I do. So what we are looking at here is a 3.4-inch barrel. Right there, you can see the top of it. Does come with the 10+1 magazine, so it's not a single stack straight line. It's kind of maybe staggered a little bit, but you get a couple more rounds in it. Without the magazine, 16.26 ounces. The weight with an empty magazine, 18.55, and then it goes up from there if you've got, depending on what type of ammo you are using in there. So the overall length of this thing is gonna be 6.5 inches. That's gonna be from all the way to the back to all the way to the front. The slide length is 6.6. So obviously it's a little bit longer, or a little bit shorter measurement on the slide, because of the grip and everything else sticks out further, just in case you have any questions there. The width of this thing is 1.1 inches overall in total, and the slide width is under an inch, so 0.87. That is definitely nice, especially for an EDC concealed carry piece. The sight's 5.24 inches. So basically that's from rear sight to front of sight, and helps kind of let you know what your sight radius is going to be if you are into knowing that kind of stuff. So before we really tear this thing down and get into it and show you how everything works, I want to compare this quickly to the Glock 19. So just putting these two side by side right there, you can see there is there's quite a size difference, okay? Quite a noticeable difference. This one is just the 19C, so it's got that nice compensated barrel. But even just placing the 43X on top of that one, right there, you can see, stay up there, be a friend today. You can see there's a really solid size difference, and that makes a lot of difference depending on where you live and the clothing and everything else. And again, a nice difference in the overall thickness there. So it is quite a bit different, quite a bit smaller, but, and here's the caveat we talked about a little bit. If you're running with a Shield Arms mags, you get the same capacity as a 19, more on that later. Let's go ahead and break this thing down. Breaks down just like a basic Glock. Go ahead and make sure it is clear, visually and physically inspect to make sure there's no rounds in there. Let it go forward, pull the trigger, pull about 1/8 of an inch back, pull down on both sides of that right there. I had somebody get a hold of me and they couldn't get one of these things apart because they were only pulling down on one side. So standard recoil spring guide rod, very similar to everything else that everybody's doing in the striker world. There's your barrel. It's pretty standard. I don't have a ton of rounds through this thing, but you're going to start seeing, like right there, you'll start seeing the smiley face come in already. That's just going to happen. That's how these things wear. Looking up in here, looks like Gen 5 Glock 43 as usual. Everything's the same. Striker lug to your, new Gen 5 style striker block right there. But then the slide has the direct mount for the optic. More about that in another video as far as the Sentinel goes. Now let's talk about, the frame and how this thing overall looks. It's the same Glock ergonomics that everyone's used to. The stipple pattern is the same, the rest of the Gen 5 stuff, and you don't have the ability to do a back strap or anything. There's not a hole in the back to put a mag well on here. There are people making mag wells, but they're just not the best because there's no really good way to put the mag wells on there. There is a little bit of a lip right there for your pinky to get onto, and I find it's so close to being almost right for my hands, even though, look at that frame, my hands are a little bit bigger. Swappable magazine release, standard looking trigger guard, and then of course you've got that one slot rail up there for a light attachment. Now everything else as far as in here, not a full breakdown, comes out as normal. But let's talk about how this trigger works because I like explaining that to people. So the first part of your trigger is obviously going to be your trigger shoe safety, which keeps the trigger from activating unless you depress that right there. That blocks into the frame so you don't have any problems out there. This vertical extension, okay, right here is what interfaces with your striker block safety right there. Okay, so once this is depressed up into the slide, it allows the striker to go all the way through, and you can see it protruding out the breech face right in that area right there. So as you're pulling the trigger, this is working its way back. It depresses that. At the same time, okay, the top part right here, your actual cruciform area, this edge right back here is your sear. Now the striker lug is captured onto that part via the front right here of the striker lug. And as you pull that trigger back, you will see that drops down. Now it drops down off of your safety ledges, which is right here. Okay, and it drops down via the help of that connector and the little angular edge that's right back there at the tip of my pointer tool. So as you pull that trigger, that little vertical extension depresses the striker safety, pulls the striker all the way back, and then drops down, allowing the striker to go all the way forward. Now, as the gun is going to cycle, the slide is going to come back, and this connector right here, okay, is going to get kicked over by the slide like that. And when it does that, it's going to allow the actual cruciform to pop back up. The striker lug is going to catch it like this, and it's going to reset that trigger for you. So that's just kind of a gross explanation of how that trigger system works. Now, obviously putting this thing back together, it's just the exact opposite. Go ahead, throw the barrel in there. Go ahead and toss your spring and guide rod back in. Make sure your trigger is depressed, and then just slide that bad boy back together and give it a couple of functions checks. Let's go ahead and do some trigger pulls so you can kind of see where this thing is going to be at, because it's typical Glock heavy. So I pull from the same place every time. That's actually not terrible. Okay, that is about 4 pounds and probably 10 ounces. So we do 3 pulls here at least, unless I mess something up. And that's what we're going to continue to do. So a little bit of inconsistency there, but that's pretty typical. 1, because this is a mechanical device, and 2, Glock triggers aren't necessarily the most set up perfectly. So that's going to be about about 2 ounces under 5 pounds. Now go ahead and pull one again, so they don't slip off here. Oh, see, that's what I'm talking about right there. It's hard to get on these triggers sometimes. Okay. And that one, a little bit of an over pull, but that's over 5.5. So talking about that, what you guys need to understand is, somebody started complaining about this in another video. If you get your finger way up here, okay, like this, if your finger is so high up on here that you're grabbing like this, you're gonna have an extremely heavy trigger pull. Look at all what's left down here. So when you're firing this, concentrate on getting your finger, okay, as low as possible, right? The lower you are on that trigger, it's still gonna function just fine, but you're gonna get the lightest pull weight, because this is working, it's like a fulcrum, okay? It's working on an arc, and you wanna get the most leverage possible. I'll give you a quick example, okay? So if I can get lowest point on here possible, okay, you'll see it pull right there. Let me get my camera to focus in for you again. Doesn't want to focus in, but give me a second. There we go. Okay, so you can see that pulled about 4.5 pounds. Now, if I get way up in the center of this trigger like this, like say way up here, just barely enough to get the trigger shoe safety in, okay, I can actually get that trigger to break almost 6.5 pounds. So remember, work the leverage, okay, on that trigger to your advantage. Why not? It's not cheating. It's how it works. Let's talk about the good, the bad, what the aftermarket needs to do here. And of course, why I think this is probably one of the best EDCs out there. Again, one of the best, not the best, not a definitive. We'll go ahead and talk about all that stuff. I know the comments are already filling up, even though it's just over halfway through the video, on what's better than what and whose gun is better than whose and all of that different stuff. At the end of the day, like I said, remember, I said it's one of the best EDC setups out there. And that caveat, let's get that out of the way. The caveat to that is the Shield Arms S15 mags. So with those mags, even though they're a little bit pricey and you definitely need to use a metal magazine release button on there, 15+1 capacity, it effectively gives you a Glock 19 that's slimmer, a little bit smaller, but still, even for bigger handed people, just really easy to get your hand around and really easy to come up, present, and get to work out on the range with. That is why I said that's a caveat, because without the Shield Arms S15s, I don't know if I'd want to carry it around all the time as compared to a Glock 19, which picks up a little bit more size. But coming in with a package like this with those 15+1 round mags just really comes out to be a nice package at the end of the day. So continue to explode in the comments about what's better than what at that point, and you guys can all get in a little fight down there about it. Let's talk about all the goods that go into the 43X MOS. As you can see up close, we've got the rail mount now, which you're gonna need a light that's gonna fit it. We'll get into more about fit and other things there. Direct mount for the optics, so much better than the MOS plates. It's got the Glock name, it's got the Glock quality, it's got the Glock reliability and durability. I've had the opportunity to see and armor hundreds of Glocks. I've only seen one that wasn't a user-induced or ammo-induced problem that wasn't related to wear and tear, and that was an actual bad connector that came out of the factory, and the thing flat out didn't function. Only seen it once, and it was, like I said, just because I've had access to hundreds and hundreds of Glocks over the years, and that was probably the oddest thing I've ever seen coming out of the Glock. Now, does it mean it's the best absolute feeling ergonomically trigger thing out there? No, but we all know that Glocks work. Some people just don't like the ergonomics in the trigger, but you can definitely deal with them. Now let's talk about the bad and what I think it needs. The bad on Glocks, the ergonomics aren't the best and the trigger is not the best, but it's definitely usable. The things I would like to see, more of the direct mount to the slide, and just go with the RMR pattern, everybody. It's okay. Everybody else, just get over your own thread pattern and width and sizes. Just make it like the RMR and we'll all just move forward together. I'd love to see a little bit more grip on here from the factory on Glock. It's not bad, but it's definitely not the best, which is why a ton of people do stipple work. And then of course, when it comes to the light rail up there, you can force feed a TLR7A on there by manipulating one of the mounts, but it's just not secure. So I know there are micro compact lights out there, but what we're really gonna need, and this comes to the aftermarket, is holster manufacturer backing. So anytime new stuff comes out like this, the problem we run into is finding holsters, especially to fit your light combination. Now, I know a lot of people have jumped onto different light brands. I would just like to see holster makers get at least the big 2, maybe 3 in the industry covered. That way everybody's kind of got it going on. But remember, when these things come out and things change, it takes aftermarket, like holster companies and all that, it takes a long time for them to catch up. Some people can get it out faster, but generally you're looking at 6 to 9 months before a lot of really good options out there start coming out for holsters and just everything else in general, because the manufacturers are manufacturing something, and sometimes they do give pre-release setups like this out to different companies to start making stuff for, but it still takes time, and we just kind of want things now. We want that instant gratification. But remember, this will fit in some Glock 43 holsters, but due to the rail edition up here, it does not fit in all of my Glock 43X holsters or 43 holsters without having to really loosen the tension because of the way that the Glock 43 and 43X frames are nosed up in the front here. So that is definitely something to take into account. You're probably gonna need a specific holster. And as far as that dirty little topic of being one of the best EDCs out there, the size, functionality, durability, the Glock name, the Glock warranty, the fact that it's easy to use, pretty much most people out there can get this gun up and running with minimal training, and the fact that they are generally readily available, except for right now because of all of the craziness, with the caveat of the Shield Arms S15 mags. That's why I think, again, it's one of the best, not the best. I know somebody's gonna misunderstand that somehow. One of the best, not the best. I'm not dealing in definitives here. I think it's one of the better EDCs to look into for multiple different reasons. Now, as far as prices go, good God, I don't know, because things are going all over the place now. The MSRP is at like 5 something, but then you see it in a store for $100 and some odd more, or on some site. So just pay attention to the market out there. I'd hate to list one price here and then it's like completely different, because then people come back and yell at me because I made a video a year ago on something that's way more expensive now. If that makes any sense to you guys. As far as the Sentinel Optic goes, I will have a review out on that real soon, but that is what I've got for you all today. I appreciate you watching the video. If you're new here, make sure you subscribe, turn those bell notification icons on, and be thumbs today in that upward direction. Let me know what you guys think about the new setup. I know the colors can be changed if you're not into that purple, which, meh, it's all right. But definitely let me know camera settings, audio, all that good stuff, lighting, if you are into what is going on here. You guys get out there, have some fun on the range. Remember, if you stay ready, you ain't got to get ready. I will see you guys on the next one.